Good morning.
Hey Scott, how's it going?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay.
All right, let me introduce everybody. Welcome to the BoardRoom Podcast. This is legendary surfer and shaper Gary Linden. Gary, thanks for being with us here this morning.
It's a real treat. How you doing?
I'm doing good. And as you may know, I sometimes start these interviews off with sort of a silly question, but and last time I spoke to you, I asked you the last place that you danced. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I knew you were going to ask that.
But no, I'm not. I'm changing it up on you though. So I want to know, when was the last sporting event that you attended?
Oh, geez. Must have been the Padres game before COVID.
Yeah, wow, that was a long 2019 or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are
probably.
you a Padres fan?
Big time since 1954.
Wow. That's right. You're old school. You're like Nate Colbert and shit like that.
Dude, I remember. So my dad worked at the county. So right, and Lane Field was right next door, right there at the port. And I remember going to see Rocky Colavito, which was a center fielder for later for the Cleveland Indians, which Padres were the farm team for that. But he'd go out, stand behind the fence at center field, and throw a strike to home plate.
Wow, how cool is that?
Yeah, I just found it. I went through my old baseball cards too. I found old Rocky Colavito on the Indians, man. Killer.
That is like, I don't think I've ever met one, and I've met a lot of Padre fans, but I've never met such a long-term Padre fan as you since 1954. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a long time.
They should give you free season tickets, man. You should be up on the big jumbo screen there.
I'm going to talk to Manny when I get to meet him here. So,
well, I know then you must be excited with the way we're playing right now. I mean, it's been incredible.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Manny Machado is my favorite player, and he's just been killing it. So
MVP. He's been insane.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Look, what are you doing to stay in shape? I think you're 71 or 72 years old.
I'm 72. Yeah. Well, I just try and surf every day if I can, and I don't stay on schedule. I don't make it every day, but if it was a little warmer, I would. But I try and go out regardless, and beach break out back. And then I took up yoga about 4 years ago, and that's helping me a lot too.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. Yeah, yoga's important, right? If we stick with it. I have a problem sticking with it.
I had trouble because I started late and I have a bad hip, but I found this like gentle yoga class where it's like for older people, and it's just a bunch of old ladies, and like I look pretty good.
Oh, yes, you do. I might have to sign up for the old lady class. That sounds like a strategy.
Yeah, but some, at first I was getting shown up by some 80-year-old senior citizens, but I do good on the balances, but on some of the other ones, I'm not quite in there. But the thing is just being comfortable and learning that you're probably, when you start this late, you're never going to be really any good at it.
Yeah.
But being good at it is getting better than you were, and staying a little flexible. And that's kind of the lesson in life, just like when we're young, we want to be the best in the whole world at whatever it is. But then you get older, it's good to be the best you can be, the best version of you,
So you're only doing surfing and yoga, and you're not, when you do yoga, are you doing, are there some core exercises? Are you strengthening your stomach or?
No, I haven't. I got a line on a personal trainer last week, and I'm going to contact him, try and get a little stronger.
Okay, cool. Is this a concern of yours? Because it's a concern of mine, and I'm a little bit younger than you are, and and I see you, and I'm inspired by you because I know you're always in the water. Do you, in the back of your mind, are you like, man, this surfing thing is like, how much longer can I do this?
Every day, every day I worry about it. Like I was getting in really, really good shape right before the pandemic. Then we had the best winter ever. My family didn't want me to go to Mexico, so I missed Toto's. And that was the first year I missed it. And then I haven't really, I haven't really gotten back. And then I had fractured my skull last August in the Big Island when I hit the reef. And
Oh,
yeah, I almost died.
what happened?
I was on family vacation and to the Big Island, and it was 10 days in a van with 6 of us with the surfboard down the middle. And, I didn't get to surf, so the last day we were in Kona, and we were in walking distance to these little reef breaks right out front. And there's one called Hunnels. And I didn't know it was a bodyboard spot, and I paddled out, and there's a south swell coming. First wave I caught, I made it, and it was just dry reef. And I'm going, boy, this is sketchy. Probably shouldn't be surfing here. There's a few bodyboarders out.
Yeah.
I figured I'm going to sit, because usually I got to get 3 waves. That's a session for me. If I don't catch 3 waves on a session. So I was saying, well, I'm going to sit out on the shoulder and just stand up a couple more times and go in. And it was a south swell coming up, and it was pushing me over the reef, and I was just waiting for a good one. And then I got, that point where you get, oh, I'm just going to go,
Yeah.
Try to catch this one. And all I can remember is seeing dry reef below me. And that was the last I can remember. And I woke up in the ambulance. I guess I was in underwater for a minute, and I got pulled out. There was an off-duty lifeguard who was bodyboarding out there, and he pulled me out.
Wow.
It was pretty gnarly. He said he flipped me over, and patted, they hit you on the chest, and I go, I'm all right. And then he asked me my name. I went, Gary Linden. And then I don't remember any of it. And I was like having an outer body experience. I knew something was happening.
Yeah.
But I didn't remember it. Then I woke up in the ambulance, and it was like I came out of this gnarly deep sleep. I didn't know where I was or anything. Then I passed out to the hospital again.
When you recall, if you can, the deep sleep, the state that you were in, is there a vision or like anything that you remember of that? Like, were there deep dreams, or was it just
It was like really being in a deep dream, but you knew something was happening, but you didn't know what it really was. Like I knew something was happening.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there.
Yeah. Was it, I've heard it described as like the black and white fuzz on an old black and white TV when there's no channel. It's just like that. Did you experience that?
I don't know. I think there's different depths for everybody.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, so it wasn't like I was in this tunnel and, I saw the light and all that I was dying or anything. I wasn't out. Like right when I hit, it's like that's when the one message I want to give to anybody is, if you die like that, it doesn't hurt.
Okay, good enough.
Thing.
When you woke up, were there people on top of you with oxygen masks kind of hovering over you?
Not oxygen masks, but just like I woke up in the ambulance on the beach, and they're going, who are you or what's your name? And,
yeah.
But when I was in that state, like I've been underwater at Pasquale's where I was like, I gotten hit on the head and I was semi-conscious.
Yeah.
I could remember going, wow, this is pretty weird. I could feel it.
Yeah.
And this was one step beyond that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is where I was just in my mind, but I wasn't in my body.
Right.
It was
crazy.
Crazy.
And you fractured your skull.
Yeah.
Were there stitches or anything like that?
Dude, it was so many stitches. Like there's inside stitches. I was fractured. It wasn't. They didn't have to pull my skull out, so it was just a little bit off. But with all the stitches inside, then there was exterior to stitch the skin back down, and then staples and stuff. It's like,
wow.
I had a killer surgeon in emergency room. He's like such a cowboy, man. He comes in and goes, he's going, the first thing about surfing is you're supposed to stay on your board. And he goes, he probably broke your neck too. We better go. We have probably, I'm going, shoot, back, where's the bedside manner guy,
Yeah.
And then he's like telling me all these killer stories and, all this, it was really cool. And it really, you felt confident. This is a guy you want stitching you back up.
Yeah.
And then he's going, it's like, okay, I got to give you some staples. And he goes, yeah, staples is probably, it's almost better without the anesthetic. And I go, oh yeah, okay. But by then I'd have the anesthetic, and then he's cleaning it all and he goes, oh, I missed a spot. And he just goes boom and zaps me with the staple gun. I go, hey dude, you were right.
Wow.
It hurts more getting the anesthetic than it does getting the staple.
Oh, interesting.
One and done, and you're out of there,
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
Wow. That's quite an experience. I had never heard of this story, and I see you, at least once a year, but wow. Well, I'm glad you're better. Let's get.
Can I put one more thing on there? Because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty good friends with Tom Morey. Like my second custom board was I ordered from him up in Ventura. So I've known him since I was about 14. And then he worked next door in his later years making the swizzle and everything. So he called me, heard about my accident, and he called me and he said, Gary, that was where I invented the bodyboard. It was it's too shallow for fins. And this was about 2 weeks before he died.
Uh-huh.
And he started telling me about how he was preparing for surfing in his mind, and that he was riding these waves. And in his mind, he said, it's so killer, Gary. You don't need your body anymore. You can just take off on these insane waves and just ride them.
And how did you take that? Did you?
I told him it's a gift from my old friend that was just one step beyond where I was and where I'd almost been.
Yeah.
It was really, really
comforting.
Yeah, very comforting.
Yeah.
Very comforting and very special moment for me.
Yeah.
Because he was such a visionary.
Yeah.
And if he could do it, I believe him.
Do you have a belief in a deity?
I don't believe in like there's one man up there that's our Father, God.
Yeah.
But I believe in a divine spirit.
Yeah.
I believe there's something beyond.
Right.
We're going to come back, and that we're a soul and everything.
Yeah.
But I believe in I was a religious studies major in college.
Oh wow.
And I believe in the closest thing to religion is Buddhism that I follow.
Right. Well, Buddhism is a religion, isn't it?
Well, it's a religion, but it's more of like my favorite class I was taught Buddhism by a Buddhist priest and also a doctorate in Jungian psychology. So he had a way of relating to Western man, Eastern thought. Mm-hmm. And it's just more it's more on how to live. It's not like a religion.
Right.
I don't.
Right. It's not like sort of the standard Western, like you say, like Santa Claus in the sky that's kind of going, do this or else.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little bit more broad and.
Yeah, it's just like the way to enlightenment is nothingness, It's like, so stay in the middle path, just stay in the middle. Don't go to the extremes. Don't go low tide, don't go high tide on us. It's just,
Well, I would suggest that you've gone to extremes with your surfing. I mean, you're a guy that you just mentioned Pasquale's. I bet you were probably over 50 when you were surfing Pasquale's, which is a no-no. How old were you when you were surfing? Like I stopped surfing Pasquale's, paddling, when I was 35. How old were you when you were getting wiped out at Pasquale's?
Oh, probably 55 or 50, something like that.
Those are extremes, Gary.
No, I know, I don't always follow what I say. Just trying to, whatever I do is what I do. I just, I give a lot of advice because, my dad told me a lot of stuff, but he never told me why, so I try and tell young people why,
Yeah.
and you make your own decision, but I don't want to force you to do it.
You mentioned early times in San Diego and college too. So I know you grew up here, I believe. What did your father do for work?
Well, he was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and then he worked for the county of San Diego as what is a training director. And so what his job was to make sure the different areas in the county all function, because we didn't have a internet or anything. So he had to go to Oceanside and to La Mesa and all the places in the county, make sure they're following protocol and seeing if they needed any help and to be the most efficient person.
And you grew up in San Diego?
Yeah, Claremont.
Right.
Yeah.
And where did you go to high school?
I went to Madison.
Madison High School.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember your story because you've told it to me before, but at some point you got involved in surfing. And how did that occur? Did you have brothers that took you to the beach, or how did your introduction to the ocean go down?
Well, I had a really bad asthma when I was a kid. I was born in El Centro, and my dad got us out of there when I was 3 because of pesticides and all the spraying that they were doing. It's just like killing me.
Yeah.
And plus, he grew up on the beach in Hermosa Beach when it was the last stop on the train of the city. So there's just nothing but sand dunes and stuff. So he grew up around the ocean, but he didn't surf. So we had this doctor, and the doctor goes, well, the only thing I can do for you for asthma is take him to the ocean, and get the salt water. And my dad was just going, yeah, buddy, thanks. So every weekend we go to the beach, and, I learned to swim. I was about 7 or so. I'd had swimming lessons, but I learned to body surf and how to surf on a mat and everything. And then when I was 12, I went to a 4th of July picnic up in Carlsbad, and they had a surfboard, and I got to ride it, and I remember, catching a wave. There was no surfing lessons. Nobody taught you how to stand up, but, I caught this foam and I got right, and I just went, this is insane. So that summer I had a paper route. It was like an independent paper route where you had to volunteer pay, like you deliver the paper and then you go, hey, can you pay me for the paper? And I went from 2 customers to 50, and I made $20 one month. And that $20, I bought an old used balsa wood surfboard. My dad and I fixed it up, and I started surfing on it. So.
What do you remember about that old board? You said old balsa, and I know you and I both, my ears were peaked up a little bit there. Was Velzy Jacobs or anything like that, or?
I think it was like, in those days that was 62, and it was like an 8-foot board, which was like not very wide. If it was 20 inches wide, I would have been surprised. Yeah. And it was like a double ender, weighed about 40 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I wish to the day I had the board, but it weighed so much. I weighed 80 and the board weighed 40. I had to drag it down the beach. Yeah, harder than heck to learn to surf on. It took me about 6 months before I could stand up and turn both ways, but it endeared me, to wood surfboards. I mean, I don't know what happened, but yeah, I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I just had a vision of you building a double ender for yourself, an Agave double ender. I can see this happening. You're going to go full circle here.
Oh, I've been full circle. I'm on the second rotation. I'm going counterclockwise now.
Well, when did you begin tinkering with shaping surfboards?
Well, I got to say with that first board, because it was just so beat up, and my dad didn't know about fiberglass and resin and stuff. Neither did I. But then that's when I started, working with it. I started making custom laminated skateboards and fiberglassing them and everything, and being the ding repair guy for my local crew. And then about when I was about 18, then Bob McTavish, the Linden Surf Club went to Australia, and Skip Fry got a Bob McTavish 8-foot plastic fantastic machine. He
Yeah.
brought it back, and all the guys in the club got to try it.
Yeah.
And then Skip made one, and he loaned it to Marty Fitch. And then I got that board, and I got a blank from Eli Miranda from La Jolla, Surfboards La Jolla, because you couldn't mix in those days.
Yeah, Eli's dad, right?
Yeah, not Eli.
Yeah.
Miranda's Bear.
Yeah, Bear's brother Nick.
Yeah.
Nick or Bear, yeah.
Bear. And so I got a blank. He sold me one out the back door because you couldn't buy blanks in those days. And I shaped a board, and I traded that for a brand new, because it was you didn't have shortboards. An 8-foot board was a shortboard.
Yeah.
So I traded it for a brand new Rick Barry Kanayapuni 3-stringer.
Wow.
Which I turned around and sold for $120, and then got some Phosphome rejects and took off,
Started building boards. And what was do you remember some of those first boards?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We went down. Tony Chan let me use a diff shaping room, and I rented a power planer from the tool place. And
was this in Del Mar?
Yeah, 15th Street. And
yeah, where Jake's Del Mar is now.
Yeah. And I got to use Diff's shaping room and his templates and stuff. And I just went shorter. I think we made a couple 7-foot boards. And
did you have a sense of, were you too young to understand that you were in Diff shaping room, or were you kind of like, oh my God, I'm in Diff shaping room? Like, was there any of that?
And I knew, of course.
Yeah.
I grew up in PB, Diff was the man, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was, top of the heap, get to go to Diff shaping room was like insane.
And did Tony charge you to use the room?
No.
No.
But it sounds like he would have.
It does. I can see him going, hey kid, Diff's not around. $50 and you're in there for 2 hours or whatever.
No, he and Bill Bain, ran up, that was their place. And it wasn't like, when he went up on the hill.
Right. It was a little mellower.
Yeah, it was. There was a guy that slept in there, Grubby, and he was like the guy who watched the place and stuff.
Was it Grubb from Cardiff?
Yeah.
Grubb from Cardiff, who used to work fishing boats with Stan Lewis.
I don't know, but it wasn't Grubby, it was Grubbs.
Grubb, yeah.
He used to live in there.
Oh, wow. He had polio, right? Grubb had a little polio. Yeah. Okay, so tell me some more about your early surfboard building influences. You've mentioned, in some ways, Tony Channon was an influence, whether he knows it or not. Who else?
Well, Skip Fry, we and Mike Hinson, those were the guys that we looked up to. We wanted to surf like Skip and shape like Hinson. So, and I just went on my own there because there wasn't too much to follow, like the V-bottoms and stuff. So the big influence was Bob McTavish too. Dick Brewer didn't get into San Diego that much, so we didn't get much of that. We didn't get much of that. And we didn't get much of Donald's boards from Nueva. Those all LA guys. And the freeway was 101. It was not a freeway. So going to LA was a big deal. So it's kind of right. We were surfing the reefs around San Diego. So we weren't nose riders so much. We were all in the Redfin, beach break stuff, like those guys. And so I went to college at UCSB.
Okay.
And when I got up there, started the influence from indirectly from Rennie Yater and just riding Rincon all the time. And Chris.
You were riding your own boards up at Rincon in Santa Barbara?
Yeah. My first one, I went up, I got Bruce Jones to shape me a board, and I had that I glass. And then I went to Australia the first summer between semesters, spent 3 weeks over there, and I got to I got to Greg Clough, who made Aloha.
Yeah.
He wasn't shaping at the time, but Ronnie Woodward was the shaper. So Ronnie and Greg and the Glasser, and I got to share a house with those guys in Caloundra, which is where Bob McTavish used to have his company called Cord Surfboards in this old winter. And we were making I forget what the name of it was, but one night, you're right, it was all about surfing Noosa. And one time there was an 8-foot swell, and Witzig, Wayne Lynch, and Bob McTavish came up to surf the swell. And I got to watch Bob shape a board for Wayne Lynch. And that was such a huge influence on me, because it was just the shortboards were starting to happen. And Bob would have you stand up, put a blank up on the wall, and have you stand up like this with your arms over your head, and he'd trace the outline for your board.
Wow, that's interesting. Oh shit, are you still there? Oh, I lost you. Damn. Hold on for just a minute. Shoot. Oh man, we're frozen. I can't hear you. Let's see if I can get you back here. Hey, I can't hear you though. Can you speak up, or did you turn off your?
Now?
Yeah, now I got you.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, I was telling you about, so Bob would have you stand up and draw your outline, but we didn't use leaders in those days. Now today we got computer shaping and leaders, which is absolutely killer. But in the old days, you had to fit somebody's body shape to your model.
Yeah.
That's why a custom board was so important. Now you don't need a custom board so much. You go, oh, I use 52 liters, or I use 26 liters, and it varies from the model. So it doesn't matter what the board looks like. You know it's going to fit you by the number of liters. But in those days you didn't. You had to be like a circus guesser. Well, you weigh about 152 and you're 5'6", so I need to make it 21 by 2.5 and whatever. But that stuck with me. So I was always able to really, I think, do a good job with custom boards, because I could gauge a person's body and know what I was doing, what it was supposed to do on the surfboard.
Well, you had 3 years of college still in front of you. Was this a time where you were like, holy shit, Bob McTavish, I think I want to do this for a living. I want to build surfboards for a living. Was this something going through your head as going into a sophomore year in college?
No, I went back to school, and that was 1969. And then right there in 70 in the spring with the riots, the Vietnam, and I went surf El Cap, came back, stoked, going down the Isla Vista where I lived, and the Bank of America was burning, and there was police cars turned over, and they killed a student. There was big time, martial law. There was a like a mini war that night where police came in and Molotov cocktails and rocks, and it was just crazy right where I lived. And they had martial law for the last quarter of school, and I went and rented this little barn that they had a little shaping thing in it. So classes were all kind of canceled. So I started making boards, and then I didn't go back after that. I quit school.
Wow, amazing. So in a weird way, the Vietnam War had an indirect effect on the outcome of your life.
I think it affected everybody that was my age and Gary.
Well, at some point you found your way to Brazil. How did that go down? And where are we in your timeline regarding that? Didn't you go to South America right away?
No, not right away. Let's see, I quit school, and I was just working at home and surfing, and my mom told me, she said, well, if you're not going to go to school, you're going to travel and get your education on the road.
Wow, that's cool.
It's just like my doctor telling my dad to take me to the beach. It's like all this stuff going. like, oh, twist my arm, don't throw me, you know, don't really do that, if anything. And so I went to I was gonna immigrate to Australia, and I got all my immigration papers and everything like that, and I decided, well, I'm gonna get a freighter from Panama. And so a friend of mine decided we were going to go through Mexico and Central America by bus, and you know, and then he was going to come back, and we got to El Salvador, and you know, we had a pretty good time, and then we decided, no, man, this is crazy. I'm not going to Nicaragua. Like, it was a war in El Salvador with Honduras, and it's pretty nuts. So we came back and spent about a month in Punta de Mita, you know, and then came back 3 months. I came back, and I went, okay, that's that trip. And then I went to France, and I spent a month, 2 months in France. Drove to Portugal, spent a month in Portugal. My friend and I were the only surfers in Portugal.
Wow.
A month in Ericeira by
Beautiful.
ourselves. Yeah, like, it was
Stupid cool.
insane.
Yeah.
My friend with my two friends went to Morocco, and I decided to go to the Canary Islands. So I got on a barge with my van and got out there and spent a month in the Gran Canary surfing. Just not too many people out there.
No.
It was pretty crazy. There was a place called Confital, and then the outside, that was like probably like third dip, just a slab on the west side.
Yeah.
And there was a place like Cayena Point, you know, where these huge waves were coming in, and there were no cords and everything in those days and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go back to school. You know, I'm going to go back to school. That's a trade route, like the trade winds blow from the Canary Islands, and then they go right to Florida. So I went down to the harbor, and every day try to get on a sailboat.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, you know, nobody's taking any crew in this old 1936 double-ender wooden boat. The captain was English, and he goes, yeah, I'm going to Brazil, and I'll take you. Oh, I need a crew. You know.
And is this like a schooner, like a topsail schooner or something like that? Like, no winches? Was it all pulled by block and tackle?
Oh yeah, it was
a wood ship, tall ship.
It was a wooden, 30-foot long.
Yeah, pretty short.
Yes, it's a small sailboat.
Right. Okay.
Double-ender Norwegian stern, built in 1936.
Okay.
One main mast, and there's this Canadian guy about my age, and he came on too, and so we left, and we were on the lee of the island.
Yeah.
And I'd sold my van for $200 and gave him the 120 for food and stuff, and drove over there. The swell was pumping on the other side. Yeah. And I got over the lee of the island, there was no swell, and he didn't know. He was a really good sailor.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal with the sails and everything, but he'd done only coastal sailing. He didn't know blue water sailing at all, or currents or anything. Right. So we get out, we leave at midnight, we're motoring along. As soon as we get out past the lee of the island, we hit force 9 winds. Gale winds.
Reef the sails.
Yeah, we took down the sail. Dude, it's like crazy, you know, and he's taking down the sail, and he's on the mast or the boom, and I didn't know anything about sailing. He's going, you know, loosen it, and I tighten up the thing, and I loosened it, and so all of a sudden he's swinging over.
Holy shit!
We're almost losing our captain.
Oh my god!
And when I finally get it in, we put the thing up, and I'm just like, we broke the spreader before we got.
Oh my god!
You know, it was just like crazy. So the motor wouldn't work. So we limped into the Cabo Verdes, which is like about after a week. with
I've been there. I've actually been to Canaries and Cabo Verde and
Yeah.
sailed across the Atlantic myself.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you know what we're going through.
Yeah, and there's good waves there too, by the way. I remember seeing great waves when we were sailing into and around Cabo. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried walking to the other side of the island to see the waves, but we couldn't find any. But there's an insane wave.
Yeah. It looked like lowers were the one that I saw. I remember going, wow, cobblestones.
There's a better one.
I bet.
Yeah, some of my friends have told me there's a better one. And you've seen pictures of it, but it doesn't say where it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we stayed there for a week and ate off our stores instead of
no.
the land. Because we thought, well, we're gonna get right across, And then the captain was afraid of hitting Fernando de Noronha and the reefs off of northern Brazil. So he hugged the coast of Africa so that we got stuck in the doldrums. So we
Oh no.
so you pick up the northern and you go like this, and you go like that.
Yeah.
We got stuck in the doldrums for 2 weeks. We didn't have a motor. We ran out of food and we were just like throwing the sails up. You get a squall at noon, and we'd run in front of the squall, throw the sails up and catch the water. And that was our drinking water. And we had like a little bowl of rice in the day. And then took it in about just 2 weeks of that in the doldrums. Just like going, oh,
that's crazy.
I'm going to die,
That's super gnarly.
We're going to die. And
that is so crazy, man. We had like 3 days with no wind, and I couldn't imagine 2 weeks. That would just be brutal.
Yeah, and
no end in sight.
No end in sight. We had no radio. We had a $14 Timex watch, an AM radio, and a broken sextant, plastic sextant that we had to take the mirror out of the compact from the wife of the captain's wife.
She was on board too?
Yeah, and she didn't sail.
There's 4 of you.
There was 4 of us, and it was
a small boat.
It was gnarly, dude. It was so gnarly because women,
What? Go ahead. No, you better not say anything.
No, I mean, women. I mean, she didn't sail, and there was 3 men or 2 boys and a man, right? I consider 20 years old,
Yeah.
And she couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
It just went,
Did she go crazy?
She went pretty crazy. Just would go off on us and stuff. And
oh my God, this sounds like a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. It was I'm thinking, going, this is like the worst acid trip I've ever been on. And I had to handle it like that.
Yeah.
So I started to handle it like, okay, just stay calm.
Yeah.
And then one night we're out in the middle of the ocean, middle of the Atlantic, and it was just pure glass.
Yep.
And it was just so calm. And I can remember just going, okay, if I die, I had a pretty good run.
21 years old.
21. I was 22. I just turned 22. But this is pretty cool.
How about the starry nights?
Yeah, it was just starry and glassy. And I just went, if I die, well, I can't do anything about it. But look at this.
Amazing.
I got to enjoy every day. Right now, I'm not dead. I'm still alive. And that people have asked me later, going, well, how could you paddle out and ride big waves? I go, dude, I've been out in 20-foot waves and not being able to see. I can swim to shore here.
Exactly.
And I wasn't afraid of dying anymore after that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that trip just totally changed my life. And I got to Brazil, and we got a first thing, should have a beer or an ice cream. And I go, well, I'm gonna have both.
Yeah. Exactly. We're gonna have both.
So I spent 6 months there and, made a living shaping, eked out a little bit of shaping, started doing some production shaping down there. Was in the infancy, surfing was,
Yeah.
board building. And that's how I got to Brazil. So,
And did when you were in Brazil shaping, were they like, oh man, this guy from California knows what he's doing? And were people like looking to you as like a leader in the surfboard building manufacturing arena there, or?
not yet. It's like I got introduced to Saquarema, where they
Yeah.
have the CT now. And I went, okay, this is insane. This is my spot. I want to be here. This is where I want to live. This is what I was looking for. Because every day there's waves, and you don't have to drive, and
It's warm.
it's pretty warm, pretty nice. And so my friend that met there, he had been to Hawaii. He built some boards. He had a planer. So we made a couple boards there and tried to sell them. And then he took me into town and introduced me to the guy who made foam, Colonel Pajeras, who made Clark foam,
I see.
Grubby Clark. And he was the manufacturer at the time,
So Grubby gave him the recipe?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He was a licensee of, I guess Grubby met him on his motorcycle adventures down there, but he made the foam, and I had met this guy named Tito Rosenberg that used to glass at Gordon and Smith.
Oh.
And he was from Rio, and he was down there making boards. I couldn't really find him. I went to find him, and he was never there. And
Yeah.
And so the Colonel Pajeras, I got to sign him GL, and Tito came, and Tito was looking for a shaper because he was a killer glasser, but not a really good shaper. And the Colonel told him, he goes, yeah, well, that's glass light, because he didn't want to take me away from that. But I come in and do 2 boards every 2 weeks or something, just to get my $20 and be able to live the rest of the month, so I wasn't mass producing, but that was where it was started. And then Tito found me, and I started working for him and doing a little bit more. But then after 6 months, I had to leave. So my goal was to come back, make some money, and then come back and, do my own thing.
Well, at some point in your career, you were heavily influenced by a guy who's influenced almost everybody, and that's Dick Brewer. Tell me about your relationship with Dick. How did it start, and so forth and so on?
Well, I was really fortunate after, go back a little bit. I came back, I worked in the US. I was a dishwasher, bartender, met my wife to be, got married, went back to Brazil, lived for 2 years, and, did production shaping. I was doing 4 or 5 boards a day, 4 or 5 days a week, and really honed my skills as being able to use a power planer. My wife became pregnant. We ended up in Ecuador. I shaped 100 balsa wood boards to pay for my first daughter. So I did production balsa wood shaping. I was doing 3 or 4 balsa wood boards a day.
Radical.
It's crazy.
You're grinding.
Yeah, we grind it. I don't know how I did it,
Yeah.
but and then I came back to the US, and I was living in Claremont, my parents' house, and a rental that my parents had. And there was this guy, Bobby Piercy was a pro skater, and he rode for Brewer skateboards, and he had been a little grom down in PB when I was younger,
Yeah.
And he came over, he was dating this hot chick that lived around the corner from me, and she said, "Oh, do you know Gary Linden? He's right over there." "Oh, I know Gary." And he comes over, and Greg Albertini was going to start a Brewer surfboard factory, in Oceanside, and I got the manager job.
Oh.
And I told Albertini, I'm going, I'll set this factory up, but I'm one of the shapers, or else I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So reluctantly, he thought I wasn't going to make it or anything else, but I ran ramrod over RB occasionally, Sandrock, Al, and Joe Blair, and Rick Rasmussen. Those were the guys I had to, those are my shapers.
Oh my God. There's a lot of egos in the room there.
Dude, believe it?
That's an incredible lineup.
And I had to, like, who's this guy? I had to prove myself to those guys. And then I was their boss.
Right.
And we had two adjoining shaping rooms, and I had one, and the other was kind of the guest room, and RB would come over and he'd shape in that one. And he wasn't at his greatest point in his career.
Yeah.
Having some problems there.
What years are we talking now? Like 74?
78. That
78.
was 78.
Okay.
And so, he wasn't putting out top quality stuff at that point, really, probably the worst time of his life.
Yeah.
And so he'd shape a couple boards, and I figured, well, I gotta show this guy, man. So I'd shape 5. He'd do 2 and I'd do 5.
Yeah.
And he'd come in and ask me, well, what do you take a look at this one? I go, yeah, it looks pretty good, but Dick, the right rail's a lot thicker than the left rail. And I wasn't backing down going, oh, Dick Brewer. I was, this is you and me, buddy, it's real. And we really established kind of a really
mutual respect
and something I will always treasure, because from that point, Dick always did his best work when he was there.
Oh, that's cool.
Always did his best work. He really dug down there, and then he would confide in me. He'd go, well, make me a quad, make me a 4-fin, because my 4-fins and my boards and my twin fins and those were really, we were winning all. Dave Barr, Joey Moran, all the top guys, and Breezy, they were winning all the contests on my boards, and he was going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I go, okay.
Well, let me ask you real quick about these guys. Like, when you think about it, it's pretty amazing, right? Sam Hawk, Al Chapman, his brother too. Was it Al's brother too, or no? Al, Sam, Ricky Rasmussen, Albertini.
Yeah.
So which one of those guys was the biggest? Well, without throwing anyone under the bus, who was the most difficult to work with?
Albertini by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really, he was the owner. He didn't shape. He just come up and just try and really ram. It's always coming in, Linden, I'm gonna kick your ass. Are you making? Because he'd get mad at Blair, because Joe Blair was always trying to pull these things. Joe.
I know Joe. Yeah. That's funny.
Joe, for the record, Joe is the greatest guy. Now,
he's a good guy. For sure.
He taught me more than anybody else.
He's still like you, still making great surfboards.
Yeah, Joe's. But Albertini would always go, "Are you making any bootleg brewers, Linden? I'm going to kick your ass." And you're just going, call me on Thanksgiving. I'm going to kick your ass, Linden, all the time. All the time. And I had to deal with that. And, it was pretty gnarly.
But going back to Brewer, you guys had this really great mutual respect thing going, and he was now doing his best work, because he was like, this guy is actually holding me to my own sort of high standard here.
Yeah.
That's kind of a unique position. I'm sure everyone else, as you say, a lot of people are like, okay, Mr. Brewer, whatever you say.
Yeah. And it just, I got to run this place, Dick. I respect who you are, and you're the greatest shaper of all time, just about, in my opinion. But we got to work together, Yeah. So, like in the last time he came and shaped, which is not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago or so, I don't know, but he'd shape and boards, and I'd look at, I'd have to go over them,
Yeah.
And he'd just get pissed, it's like, come in and just go, what are you doing? I'm going, yeah. Oh. I go, RB, I'm not changing the shape. I'm just your detail man. You know, because they'd had to be tinted.
Yeah.
And he goes, wow, Jack's probably been doing this for the last 20 years.
Jack Reeves.
Jack Reeves, yeah.
Right.
Which he had. And it's funny because you don't, Jeff Prindle was glassing me for at one point, you know?
Yeah.
And he did the same thing to me. He was
Quality
wearing
control.
glasses. He just goes, put these things on, you know? And I'm like, your eyes start getting bad. You stop seeing, you think it's all good. It feels all good. There's all these scratches that you didn't get out. And great if it's a clear, but if it's a tint,
yeah,
gotta get it together, you know?
Yeah.
So it was funny.
You know, excuse me. The, you know, you mentioned being the manager of a surfboard factory, and if I can push it forward a little bit, I spoke with somebody recently that's in the surfboard manufacturing industry here in Southern California, and he suggested that California surfboard building is coming up on and in the middle of and continuing to be in a kind of a sketchy place. And he mentioned two things. One is a shortage of labor, of qualified labor, and the second is the cost of real estate. And as you know, Gary, the guys out in Oceanside on Airport Road, for the listeners that don't know, there's probably, I don't know, 15 to 20 surfboard manufacturers out there. They're all being wiped off the map as they regentrify and build a new development out there. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you sense that California surfboard manufacturing is going through a crisis based on quality labor and real estate?
Well, regarding the real estate, I mean, I was at 1027 South Cleveland, block from the beach, from 1978 till 2 years ago. And I had to stop manufacturing probably 20 years ago or something like that there. So I got pushed out. I was lucky enough to be able to, my business was able to stay here and, you know, glass out in the valley, but I didn't have to move out there. You know, as real estate gets more expensive out there, you got to move someplace else. But I mean, there's places in California you're always going to be able to, you know, Santee or, you know, Temecula or, you know, wherever. There's always going to be some land as far as real estate goes. That's it's going to get more difficult. But the real problem, I think, is always been the cost of manufacturing versus the cost of what you can sell it for.
Yeah.
And I actually think that is increasing. I think that it's getting better. I think if I could make surfboards nowadays, I could actually make a living at it.
Right. There's a good margin.
The margins are better.
Yeah.
It used to be, I mean, it used to be there was one price for a surfboard and that's what it was. But now there's all these different markets, you know?
Yeah.
Like you go to the upscale market, which is where you can double your money. And people don't even think twice. And then there's the clear sanded finish, and if you have a good marketing and you spend a lot on the best team riders in the world, you can make money at that end too.
Yeah. And doing volume like Channel Islands or something. Yeah.
Well, I think actually, you know, it's better. And you talk about skilled labor. We couldn't shape more than 100 boards a week. You ask Al, you ask Rusty, you know, you're going to put your name on it. You're not going to shape 100 boards a week. So how are you going to get it done? You're going to get 5 ghost shapers. And then at the end, after you do your 4 or 5 that day, you got to go over another 20.
Yeah.
And make sure they're up to speed or close. Now computer shaping, you don't have to go over it.
Yeah.
It's done. It's pretty good. So I think.
But what about sanders and laminators? Do you sense that, like when you look out at, say, like Jeff's place out in Oceanside or Chris Christensen's, these guys are like 50, 60, 70 years old that are laminating surfboards. Is there somebody filling those shoes? Do you see people filling in the gaps as we move along?
Well, I basically can only speak for the shapers because that's where it starts.
Right.
But, I had the feeling that nobody was even learning to shape anymore.
Yeah.
And the last boardroom I went over, I don't usually watch any of it, but I went over when Ryan Birch was shaping and using the planer. And after he finished, I go, dude, that's as good as anybody I've ever seen anybody use a planer, myself included.
Yeah.
And when I go, I didn't think you guys even knew how to use them. And he goes, well, we're just following in your footsteps, which was really a great thing, touched my heart to hear that. But I think there is a resurgence, and I think there's always going to be somebody that made me believe that the craft is not going to die, and it's not going to be high volume, which I don't think it should be, because I think it's a terrible way to make a living. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think, I think use your brain, go to school, don't quit school, don't try and do it. But, and there's going to be, better technology. But I think there's going to always be people that are going to want to do it because I still do it.
Yeah.
Even though, I love it,
Yeah.
It's very, very enjoyable thing if you don't have to make a living at it.
Yeah. It's an art.
It's an art.
What about you and the computer? How comfortable are you? Do you even have computer programs?
Oh, shoot,
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
fill me in.
My history with computers is pretty long. I went to, when I was in France the first time in 71, Diff was shaping for Barlon.
Yeah.
And at that time, and I used to go watch Diff shape, and I got a Barlon surfboard and became friends with the family.
Yeah.
And I went back in 1984 and saw the first computer shaping machine that Monsieur Barlon invented.
Wow.
And
1984.
84. And I came back and I told Tony Channon and Bill Bain of what I saw, and they had, they got this guy to invest, and they made KKL, the computer shaping service.
Yeah.
And they didn't have enough customers, so I called Al Merrick and I go, Al, I've been using this computer shaping machine. It's so killer. You got to try it. Shoot myself in both feet.
Tell all your competition about the good news, Gary.
Yeah. And I've been computer shaping since then.
Wow.
So,
crazy.
but do I operate the programs and everything? No.
I mean, do you open up the what is it?
The Shape 3D?
Yeah, whatever one. It doesn't matter. Whichever one. Do you open those up and use the software?
I don't use the software. I always have somebody help me do it.
Right. Dave
Barr's been helping me for the last couple of years.
Yeah, Dave's got it figured out pretty good. I know there's a guy who builds Taylor Knox's boards, Chris Borst, who you probably know.
Uh-huh.
And I understand that he's so far advanced that he can punch out a board and just sign it. Like, doesn't even have to take a screen to it.
Well, he owns the machine.
Yeah.
So so you can do that. It's just, is it cost effective? For him, it's probably cost effective because he can slow the cuts down so that they're really, really tight.
Right.
But if I'm going to charge you $30 for a cut, to do it fast, I'm going to do it faster. So you're going to have to make up the difference. Barlon was so far advanced in that stuff that he invented the computer mixing. He used to make Clark foam. He was a friend of Grubby. He invented the computer mixing of the chemicals for Clark. And he had designed a board where you could computer cut the board, you could laminate it, and then sand it all by computer.
Really? That's fascinating.
So all of it can be done.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
setting up a factory to do it.
is there enough margin
Right,
to or return on investment,
right.
and there hasn't been. So
Yeah,
for Chris, yeah, I don't want to get dirty. I'm going to do this perfect. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
boom. But
Cool.
how much would he charge me to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
If he said $200, I would go, no, I don't think so. You know? I can only sell the board for 300 or whatever, you know.
Tell me about foam. You mentioned foam. I've tried really hard to ride EPS foam, expanded polystyrene foam blanks, and I just haven't been able to. They just don't surf the way I like the board to react. There's something about a polyurethane foam blank, and I think it's what I like to call, and I think Dave Parmenter used this phrase, and it makes so much sense to me, which is polyurethane seems to have a dampening effect. And I've tried, interestingly, the extruded polystyrene, which is the XTR foam and the stuff that the guys at Patagonia are using. And I actually don't mind that foam. I kind of like, but the EPS foam, I'm having an issue with. Just me personally. I'm not saying there's anything wrong or bad with it. What are your thoughts? What do you like to ride? I'm sure you probably like to ride agave wood, or not wood, agave or whatever. Tell me about your experience with EPS and these other foams, and what's your favorite?
Okay, well, the history goes back. I used to shape in Japan. Like for 14 years, I went there 3 or 4 times a year, and there was a guy over there making windsurfers, and he called this foam X-Tune or Cross-Tune, and that was expanded, extruded polystyrene made by Dow Chemical.
Yeah, that's the stuff that Javier uses at XTR.
Yeah. So it took, it was blue board, was insulation foam. And this one guy that worked at Dow over there got him to make it white. But the only problem is the volume of one day's production would fill Tokyo Dome. So he couldn't make all his windsurfers. So when I was over there, they gave me one, and I shaped it, and I came back, and first turn at Swami's, I went, this stuff is insane. I love this. So I started bringing containers over of Cross-Tune. And then
what did Grubby say? Grubby must have been pissed.
That's why I got canceled.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story, but you know,
we're gonna have to go there in a minute, but continue on with Japan, and you're surfing at Swami's and you like this board.
So I loved it. You know, it's all I wanted to ride. It just had this great feel, like it had this spring and response. And by the way, I hate EPS. It's just like you. I can't ride it. There's no momentum to it.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter whether it's a short board, a long board, or a gun. None of them work to how I wanted to say. And Harold Walker told me, he goes, it's probably because all the weight is in the skin, and there's no direction down the middle. But we can talk about it later. But that's an interesting concept. It rides okay once you get it going, but it stalls at the top. It doesn't have any forward momentum. But anyway, so I brought that stuff back. This guy Pedro came up from Peru, as Javier's cousin, and he wanted to start SVF. And I was buying it for 30 in Japan, getting a container and selling it for 75. Stretch was one of my customers. Gordon Smith was doing windsurfers. I had a nice business. And Pedro comes in and he wants to compete with Clark Foam. So a Clark Foam blank at that time was like about $38, and he was going to charge 40. And I go, Pedro, it's a different clientele. You're not gonna have the same customer base at Clark Foam. I don't care if you sell it for 75, and I don't care. I don't need the business, but don't kill it.
Yeah.
About a year later, he was out of business, you know, because he sold it for so cheap. And then Javier came over and called it XTR.
Yeah.
And he's done well with it. Javier did a good it's a niche market, but great boards. But I like it. And maybe it's something because those are closed cells, just like polyurethane.
Yeah.
And whether the other EPS is like beads, little beads so they're not really ever connected.
Yeah.
And I don't know the difference of what it is, but there's something about the transmission of energy when it flexes. It doesn't well.
It's static. It's stasis. It's like you say, you stand up on the board and it doesn't go.
It doesn't go. And if you stop paddling one paddle too early, it stops. Brakes go on.
Yeah. Anyway, I've just been riding one recently, and I've been trying so hard to enjoy it, and I've just decided I'm not going to ever go there again. I've learned my lesson too many times,
Yeah.
But it's interesting, this idea that because they're kind of separated, the EPS, the little balls, right? They're not connected. And I love Javier's foam. I've had 2 of his boards, and they both were incredible.
Yeah.
Tell me this Clark story. So you got canceled by Clark. You're one of the few or many that got basically told to take a hike. It must not have been a pretty experience.
Yeah, it was kind of brutal, because I had long history with Grubby, and I was instrumental in getting the ultralight blanks blown. He made these blanks, and he wanted to stop doing it, and he called me up and he goes, I went up and met with him, and he goes, I can't make your ultralight blanks for you anymore. And I go, how come? And he goes, well, there's too many seconds. I go, well, keep making them. I'll buy all the seconds, because when you don't put the quantity of material in the mix, it has a tendency not to fill out the mold. So you get problems. So it's the lighter you blow a blank, the harder it is to make. So I thought, oh yeah, we're buddies and everything. And he used to give you a discount on your ads if you put the Clark foam logo in.
Yeah. So
I started putting my Balsa Flight logo and my Crosstown logo, and he's just, and then what I used to.
What year was this? Like 82 or something?
I don't know. It was after that. It was end of the 80s probably, or early 90s, because we were computer cutting boards. I'd order a batch of foam, get it sent to KKL, it'd get delivered, and then I go shape somewhere in the world, and come back. And I remember coming back from one of my trips, and my foam wasn't there. And I'm going, what happened? And I called up there, and I go, well, you were past due on your account. I think it was $25, or maybe it was maybe it was $2.50,
Yeah.
But he'd canceled me. So, and by that time I'd started using Walker foam too. Donald had given me a Walker foam blank, and this surf's better. I like it better, and it doesn't delaminate and everything. So I was getting a little bit of everything, and then he canceled me, and so I started using Walker foam. But it was just like when he went out of business, he didn't take anybody else into consideration. It was like, boom, this is business, son. This is we play.
And did you call there, or did you talk to Matt Bart, or did you talk to anyone there, Matthew, or like, how did you find out? It couldn't have just been, I owe him $2.50.
Yeah, no, I had to call up. Yeah, that's why I called up and found out. I don't remember if Dick Morales was still, I think Dick was still managing the factory, and he was a great guy,
Yeah.
But I probably end up talking to the secretary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've been using other stuff ever since.
Yeah, I used a Clark blank ever since then.
I think I saw a Clark blank at your factory, at your place, though, at Cleveland Street, before you left.
I have a pretty darn good collection, because I got a couple Clark foam blanks. I have a collection of what happened after Clark quit. So I went up and became general manager Walker, and there was Just Foam was just getting started. there was Safari was my biggest competition for imports. So I got a Just Foam Blank, I got a Safari, I got some Walkers, I got a Clark. Just so if my
Comparison.
museum is a history of that time.
Oh, interesting. That's cool. Well, I guess I want to know what's been like. You've had such a long. I mean, we haven't even talked about your big wave stuff. I mean, you've ridden. What's the biggest wave you've ridden? 65 feet, maybe.
Well, I don't know. The biggest wave I ever rode was up for biggest wave of the year in 2002, and I think that was probably 55, something like that. But
Right.
the picture didn't. I didn't get it in the takeoff. I got it at the end of the ride, and I didn't win.
Yeah.
So,
You were 55 years old on a 55-foot wave.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
60 foot, pretty darn big, man. To paddle in.
Oh my Lord.
I think there's very few 60 to 65 foot waves been ever paddled into. Maybe Twiggy at
Mavericks.
Jaws.
Oh, at Jaws, yeah.
Yeah, maybe this year, Lucas Chianca at Nazare paddled in a pretty big one. But
It gets to that point, it's just so hard to judge, right? I mean, after, I don't know, let's just say 50 feet, it's like, dude, you're at a realm where it's so much water surging up the face because of maybe some back, like at the peak moment, it could be a 40-foot wave, but at the peak, it might have been 70 for 3 seconds, or whatever.
Well, I think the speed, I think that, 50-foot wave is 25-foot Hawaiian, that's what, So 25-foot wave is, even the old guys, well, that's the threshold.
Yeah.
I think I've caught maybe a handful of waves that big.
Yeah. Amazing.
But 60-foot, getting up the speed, the paddling speed, because it's the only way you're going to really do that is turn and burn, just flip it. You're not going to be able to,
right.
And flipping it on a wave that's going that fast is pretty crazy,
Yeah, in a weird way, you need a smaller board to do the flip,
But you can't.
I know. That's what it's like. There's this area of no return.
Yeah. So Brock Little caught a pretty big wave one year that was pushing 60 feet at Waimea.
Yeah.
There's been a few cases, maybe Greg Knoll's wave was 60 foot at the one we'll never see.
Makaha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that wave was 70 feet. Let's get it clear.
No, I'm guarantee you it was 70 feet.
Tell me, Mavericks, tell me about the World Tour. You were involved with it for a while. I don't believe you're involved with it anymore. I just was looking this morning. There's 2 events on the Big Wave World Tour, the Nazare tow surfing event and the Jaws event. Do you think that's enough? Do you think that the big wave surfers are getting their just due? And do you think that it's engaging from an end user standpoint, from a consumer standpoint? Your average surfer that's out at Pipes and Encinitas, does he care about a Big Wave World Tour?
Well, I created the Big Wave World Tour and ran it without the World Surf League for 5 years. We crowned 5 world champions, and we had 8 events on tour.
Yeah.
And then I gave it to the World Surf League because I thought that they would take it to the next level where I couldn't take it, because I basically financed it on what I was able to make making surfboards, which I laugh most people can't even eat on.
Yeah.
And so it was, it was just a lot of love and support from the surfers and the event organizers. But what happened was, when the World Surf League took it over, they tried to blow it up too big, and they made it unsustainable. We spent about 70 to 100 grand doing it with the broadcast and everything in the end, and with prize money. And I was able to find sponsorship up to that level. I had a tour sponsor at one point, putting 50 grand an event, but they immediately start spending $700,000 on an event, and nobody would sponsor it, you know. So they just gradually, there is no world tour anymore. There's 2 events, but there's no world tour. And no, I don't think it's enough. I think it's ludicrous that and it's very hurtful for me, because it's a baby that I created and I passed it over so it would be sustainable, and now it's dead, which is really hurtful for me. And I think is, as far as how it impacts the rest of surfing, I think it is just like it always been. It is the highest level you can take surfing to, you know. It's not, and it's something that maybe not everybody can do or is really interested in, but everybody that you talk to, that's the most exciting thing that I've seen. That's, how can you do that? It's the most man against nature. It's like, why is UFC popular? Because it's, you know, people are coming close to death when they fight. And we, you know, the Rome and all that stuff, people want to see the ultimate challenge, you know. And for surfing, you know, you don't think, well, I'm going to die if I go surf Oceanside Boulevard, you know. But if you're going to go surf Jaws, yeah, there's a chance, you know. And people are interested in you know, challenging the, you know, the most human challenge you take. It's most exciting watching big waves. It's incredible. And the guys that do it now, the goal for me was that big wave riding had always been something that was more of a mature sport, you know, like somebody that was able to afford to chase a swell, afford to have 2 big boards, afford to be able to pay a boat to take you out to Totos, whatever, afford to. There was no 15-year-old kids doing it.
Right.
You couldn't do it. There was no 25-year-old kids doing it.
Yeah.
We weren't really seeing what an athlete was capable of doing at its peak. So I thought, well, we need a career path. Where's a career path for Greg Long? You know, he was a 14-year-old world longboard champion, but which I tease him about a lot.
He also won the NSSA Men's Open as probably an 18-year-old.
Yeah, but there was no, you know, he's a big race hitter. Where was he gonna go? You know, and when he came down, I was running Red Bull Big Wave Africa, and he came down as an invitee, and it just, man, this is working, man. Here's this kid, dude, and he charges. I mean, he was an alternate, and I pulled one of the guys out and put him in.
Oh,
you know,
cool.
and then we see Lucas Cianca. You know, I watch him. You know, we see Anthony Tasnik and Luca Padua now, and all these kids. You know, I want to be a big wave charger. You know, I'm going to go work with Laird Hamilton, and I'm going to buff up and learn how to do this, and I'm going to do it right. You know.
Yeah.
And that I think it's unfortunate that we don't have a venue for these guys.
Yeah. What about the Mavericks event? I understand that there's a person that's got a permit pulled and is ready to run the event. How do you feel about that? And maybe you're involved in it in some way. I don't even know.
I've only heard, you know, snippets, and I think it's a woman that's you know, doesn't have any experience, so I think it's going to be an uproad battle for her. I wish her all the luck. I mean, I think there's going to be a return of Todos Santos here.
Really? You got something brewing, do you? Oh, good. Okay, cool. And so in 5 years, where do we see big wave competitive surfing?
Well, I hope it has a resurgence, and I think it has to start over like I did it before. You know, individual events proving that they're sustainable, and then linking together to crown a champion. And I see the WSL coming back in and just sponsoring the world championship at Jaws, because Jaws is the most phenomenal big wave that I've ever ridden. I mean, at Nazare, I would like to see a paddle event at Nazare again, because that was incredible.
Oh my God. The Nazare is almost too dangerous. Right? I mean, it's almost more dangerous for the ski drivers than it is for the surfers.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's more dangerous at the level that you do like towing, because there's too many skis out there.
Yeah.
And it's okay. No, it's okay on a free surf level because they're coordinating and working together. When you start to compete, put the competition thing in, and if people are making bad decisions, people are forcing the issue. It's a different level. When a paddle, you're not going to get it. You're going to go on a day that's not as big as it can get.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. Yeah. But we ran a couple of events there. It was good. But regardless, do whatever you want. I'm just saying that was exciting and people would like it. But I would like to see, the events at Pico Alto was a great event. Punta de Lobos was a great event. Todos was a good one. Puerto was a good one.
Yeah.
Punta Galea is still running. It's a good one. There's plenty of spots in Spain. There's spots in Australia. There's spots all over. And I envision big wave surfing as a tiered thing, because big wave surfing for me is riding the biggest wave that's available. Whether it's 2-foot La Jolla Shores, I'm going to sit outside, and that 1 3-footer that comes through, I'm on it. That's my big wave. And you just take that to another level. So there can be an A, B, and C level to it. Yeah. Like you go, sea level is Italy or something. Maybe it gets 10 foot. That's the biggest thing. But so you qualify on the C level tour, and you go to the B level tour, and then you go to the A level tour, which is Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that'll happen ever in lifetime, but I think it's viable to get the individual events up and running. Get Mavericks up there, killer event. Nell Scott Reef, killer event. There's good waves. Get one at Waimea, get one, wherever it's viable for the locals.
So you've got Todos kind of, I know it sounds like you want to keep it kind of under wraps, but you're saying there's some possibility that you're going to start the Todos event up again.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be a one-off. It's not going to be the kickstart to something else that you're doing.
No, I just, at this point in my career and having done a tour and everything else, that's just too much for me. Yeah. Just want to have something at Todos. This is my break that I love, and, place that I love and people I love, and, just give a chance, for the Mexican surfers. And
sure,
there's some kids that are starting to charge.
I believe it.
The Mexican kids that are going for it. And it's so stoked because, they don't have any outlet, where are they going to go? There's nothing. Yeah. You got this beautiful wave down there, and, just keep it going. Like I want to have something that's, I don't have to have the best surfers in the world. I just have to have, or the best wave or anything, just to have an event, have a good event.
Let me ask you this. We've had a great chat here this morning, you and I always enjoy talking to you. You've got great stories. I don't even feel like we've touched on, I know last time we spoke, we went in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
But if somebody wanted to order a custom surfboard from you, how would they get a hold of you?
Best way to go is just to give me a call.
Is there a website, Garrett?
I've got a website. They're at lindensurfboards.com. I don't check it all the time.
Okay, but they can get your email there, though, right?
Yeah, my email.
Yeah.
You don't check that email though. But
are you building a lot of Agave boards?
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you a little bit
Yeah.
right
Yeah,
now.
please. Yeah.
So I've been building agave boards for more than 20 years and stuff, and they've been varying on. Some people could ride them. They're all anatomically correct, but they're more of an art piece.
Yeah.
But I've got a source of blanks now, and they're absolutely insane.
Really?
They're
Why are they better than before?
because they're being built on a 33,000 acre farm that,
Mhm.
so that there's a million stocks
Right.
that so you could sort through it and make.
Is it
pick-
about the way you lay them up?
What's that?
Does a lot of the quality depend upon you, Gary, laying them up correctly, or?
No. The quality depends on resource.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to go source these stocks. I'm going to ask the neighbor if I can go in the backyard and risk getting bit by their dog and get it, getting 6 or 7 stocks, and then I'm going to use those to make a board, and that means some of them might be too soft, and some might be too hard, some might have crack, and some might not be. But I'm going to build a board.
Yeah.
But if I've got a million poles to select for, I'm going to only pick the one that are this dry. I'm doing 20 of them right now that I got, and I'm able to get them cut on the machine. They're
Really?
consistent weight. They're all. I'm doing 20 of the same shape, and the weight varies like 6 ounces between all the variety, the density, all this relative density. They're riders.
You and I spoke earlier about foam. How does this agave, because it's not a wood, right? Describe to the listener how would you categorize or characterize agave blanks?
It's an agave board. You've got to think of it as more like a water conductor, like a straw, like the agave plant is a desert plant, and so the moisture is funneled down from the leaves to the root and the heart, and that shoots the water up to the flowers, which is the top of the stalk, which I make the board out of. So it's a very, very porous material with a strong bark, so shell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a straw. So it's very it's held together with these strands, so the grain is actually fibers. So for me, it's the ideal surfboard material. Balsa wood is too hard. It's like the 3 little bears. One bed's too soft, one bed's too hard, one's just right. Balsa wood's too hard. So to get it to curve and you're shaping it, you're just constantly taking a line off. It's like a little plain line. Foam's too soft. It's mushes. You can't cut a good line. And agave's right in there between for shaping. And then the flex is the same. Balsa's too stiff, doesn't flex at all. Foam's too flexible. It doesn't, it doesn't.
You need a stringer.
But it dissipates the speed. So
Dampening.
for a longboard or a gun, the energy is dissipated. So if you paddle a longboard, foam longboard, you paddle it through a wave and you go on the other side, it's like that. You imagine when you're dropping into a big wave and you're on a foam board. It's going, you hit a little chop and boom.
How light can you make me an agave board? If I want like a light, like say 6.5 pounds, 7 pound short board, like a little fishy thing.
Easy.
What's the right weight in your opinion? What's too light? Because I've had boards that are too light.
Well, for a short board, pro board.
Say for a fish, like for me, for a fish, I want a light little fish that zips around.
Do you know what weight yours is?
The one that's too light, you mean?
No, that you like.
Weight? I don't. I would suggest to you, I don't know the exact weight, but I like really light, but without being too light. So I'm going to say, I think 6 pounds would be good.
6 pounds is what length?
5'11", 20 and 21 inches wide, let's say.
I think that's doable.
2 5/8.
Yeah, I think that's doable. I want to tell you a real quick story
Yeah.
about weight.
Yeah.
So I'm working with Harold Walker, and I've been managing the foam factory, and it's a big deal by this time. And I'm going, Harold, I need a lighter board. And he goes, how much you want it to weigh? I go, no, Harold, I just want it lighter. How much you want it to weigh, Gary? And I'm going, well, Harold, I don't want the ultralight one. I want it a little bit lighter. And he goes, how much do you want it to weigh, Gary? And he gives me this scale. And he gave me the scale, so now I weigh everything. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because unless I have some parameters, some days light feels heavy and some days heavy feels light.
Yeah.
It's really weird when you put it in that level. And if you like, Harold wasn't surfing anymore, but by the way, they told me Harold was a good surfer in his day.
Oh, good. Cool.
Yeah, which
I believe it.
To know.
Yeah.
I just got told that a couple of days ago, but you have to know, like, so I was going to say, like, a pro board, I know 5 pounds, like a competitive pro board, 5 pounds.
Yeah.
So I know that the 610 blanks that I have shaped vary between 6.5 pounds and 6 3/4 pounds. So
that's the agave.
Uh-huh.
And that's without glass or
That's without glass.
Right.
So you figure if I want to put 2-ounce bottom and a 4-ounce deck.
2 ounces on the bottom.
Yeah.
That's all.
I'm just sealing it.
Okay.
Not gonna break.
All right. I love it. I love it.
So I'm going to get you an 8-pound 610.
I want a 6 pound 5'11".
So what I'm saying is, so you go lighter, and then I have the ability now to go to the blank factory and go, okay, I don't want to use the strongest, lightest wood. I want to use the lightest wood because I want a really light board. Yeah. So I got an ultralight agave. I got a reg standard.
I want the ultralight
agave now, if you want.
So can I order a board from you?
Sure.
I want a 5'11" fish.
Okay.
Here's the big question. How long will it take?
Well, not too long if you're not price.
Gary, how long? I'm going to go with Walker here. How long will it take?
I'm going to give you one more question though.
Okay.
It has to do with the price. I can get it air freighted and get it to you in 6 weeks finished.
But it's more expensive because it's
going to cost more.
Right.
And it's going to cost more than a regular board too.
Yeah.
Probably twice as much.
$1,200 more.
Yeah, more.
Yeah.
But I don't have it all priced out.
Yeah.
But roughly, it's going to be about twice the retail.
Right. Well, I'm just talking hypothetically with you here. I think it's fascinating. I do want an agave surfboard.
Come up.
I want an agave fish.
Come up and take a look at what I got in my shaping room right now. I just got 2 8/4s cut, and I've got 15 6/10s cut. And you are not going to believe like the weight on my 8/4s. Like
light.
They're light, but so like why gave you the example of the 5 pound pro board. I can probably make a 5 pound pro board.
Sweet.
But as I go, but it's not going to hold up. Like a 5 pound pro board, it's not going to hold up whether you make it out of XPR or
right.
Millennium foam or Arctic foam or whatever. It's not going to hold up.
Yeah.
But my 8/4 gun, I can make strong and lighter than my 8/4 foam board.
Yeah.
As you go longer, the proportionately weight to strength. So I could put 6 ounce on my 8.4 and it's not going to be any heavier than my foam board because I had to put a inch stringer in it to get it as strong,
Right, exactly.
So,
all right, well, I'm gonna come up there. I know you moved, but you're across from the JS people, right?
yeah, I'm at 306 Wisconsin.
Okay.
And if you want to get a board from me, probably the best thing to do is just call and leave a message on 760-722-8956, which is the phone number I've had for the last 45 years.
Sweet. Give that number one more time because people want to order books.
760-722-8956. And leave a message because I probably won't answer it. But I'll call you back and give you my cell phone.
And then I'm going to come up there and visit. I'm going to come say hi and take a look.
It's pretty phenomenal to check these boards out, and the fact that we're going to be making them. I mean, we're going to be producing Agave boards for use.
Yeah, I definitely would want to absolutely ride it. I've been fascinated by wood. I've told you this before. I've been fascinated by balsa, and a long time ago, Randy Rarick said, he was big on wood's just the best. Wood's the way to go. It's better than anything. And obviously agave is not wood, but it's just this new fascinating material that I'm intrigued by.
You know what? The greatest thing about it, and this has been one of the reasons I've been working on with it, this is all industrial waste.
Right.
And
it's like a tequila factory or a farm.
Tequila has another waste. When the tequila heart blooms, which is what they press and make the tequila out, that's when the plant matures. If you left that alone, it would make a stock. So the tequila process wastes all the leaves, from which I want to make fabric. And the sisal factory, which uses the leaves fibers to make rope and mat and bags, wastes the stalks. So we're using the stalks, which are waste, and creating a whole new industry and a whole new form of employment.
So they must be excited that you're buying their waste.
Yeah. Oh, it's beyond that. It's like I said, it's a 33-acre farm, and it's creating a whole new industry for the workers and the people that are there. And
that's cool.
The fact that we're using our waste, that's always been my thing, from the recycler boards and all the whole thing. I just take a look at your waste and make something killer out of it.
Yeah.
Don't throw it away.
Yeah. All right. Well, Gary, we had a fruitful talk. We had a great talk. I really appreciate you being on the show. And I look forward to seeing you at the BoardRoom show. I'm going to come up and visit, obviously. And we're going to talk Agave surfboards for me.
I'll get one for you for the show. I'm planning to that's what I'm going to put in my booth.
Oh, killer. Okay, well, look, everyone needs to come to the BoardRoom International Surfboard Show. And this farm that grows this agave, is it in state or is it out of state?
It's in Africa.
Africa. So this truly is an international booth.
Yeah.
The Gary Linden Surfboards booth is going to be international because we've got African resource here.
Third world.
That's insane. That's so cool. I'm psyched. Gary, thank you, buddy. Thanks for being on the show, and we'll chat soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.